What do you do when the thing you built your entire identity around, the thing you've loved since you were 5 years old, is no longer the path you're meant to be on? That's not a hypothetical. That's exactly what Nathalie Holmes had to figure out. Welcome to Get Messy, the mindset space for creatives who want to build sustainable, successful careers without losing their sanity. I'm Maddie, professional performer of over a decade. I'm currently in grad school to become a therapist, and I'm the friend who's never going to BS you about what it takes to actually stay in the game. Today, I'm sitting down with someone very near and dear to my heart, Nathalie Holmes, who is the quintessential showbiz darling, which you're going to hear more about all of the things that encompass what a showbiz darling actually is. And she recently made the pivot into becoming a mental health professional, but she still blends a lot of her expressive arts and creativity into everything that she does. Nathalie describes leaving the performance world, the entertainment industry, not as giving up, but it felt like a breakup, a genuine, took a whole year to heal breakup with what was the love of her life, the first big, great love. And she was generous enough to really talk about the way that she found her way through it. And a lot of it was following the same thread of human connection that drew her to stage in the first place. And as she was making the pivot from identifying as a performer in the entertainment industry into a mental health professional that also uses a lot of creative expression in her work, and the way that she found her way through this transition was by following the same thread of human connection that drew her to the stage in the first place. And it is something that every creative who's navigating a really big identity shift or transition needs to hear. You will feel so very seen by what Nathalie describes. We talk about using creativity as a therapeutic tool, what it took to hold space for teens who actually look forward to group therapy. It is so cool. Nathalie was describing some of the things that she brings in to the teen therapy groups that she runs. And I swear, if I had that access as a teenager to someone like Nathalie, I feel like my entire teenage years and 20s would have probably gone completely different. And we also talk about how Nathalie keeps her own cup full while doing some of the heaviest work that there is. This episode is warm, funny, and deeply human. And without further ado, please welcome one of the most creative people I know, Nathalie Holmes. I'm just so excited to be here with you, Nathalie. I've been so looking forward to this. To give people a little glimpse, for those of you who may not know some of your background, you are a creative and a mental health professional with a background as an actress, a comedian, a writer, and a magician's assistant, which I love. During COVID, you pivoted into crisis work after realizing your own experiences with trauma and therapy had given you the tools to support others. You started as a crisis worker on a hotline, and you now train teens to support their peers through a youth-led crisis hotline, which is incredible. You are blending expressive arts, therapy, storytelling, and social emotional learning into your work. You are in the final stretch of grad school, pursuing licensure as an LMFT and LPCC with a focus on working with adolescents and helping adults reconnect with their inner child through creativity and self-expression. What would you title this current season of your life?
First of all, you made me sound super interesting, so thank you for that.
You did that all on your own.
This era of my life is, goodness, I think I would title it the okay, it's happening era, with that intensity of okay, we're doing it era.
We're here. It's happening.
Off we go.
Off we go. You recently went back to grad school, or you're not recently, I guess, because you're almost done, which is a huge undertaking. I am in my second semester, about to be done with my second semester of grad school, and I'm always curious to learn what the true catalyst is for someone making that decision, because it is not one to take lightly, between the cost of it, the sacrifice of your time. It is a huge undertaking. What was the moment you knew you had to go back to school, and your initial intention for going back to school? Has that shifted at all now that you're almost done with school, or has it stayed the same?
Honestly, it was the pandemic. I was sort of seeing the people around me not being able to cope in ways that came naturally to me. And I was like, hey, I can be of service here. And so that was my initial going to grad school. And then admittedly, I got overwhelmed because when I started grad school, I was also an overnight crisis counselor. So I was working till 4 or 5 in the morning and then going to school during the day. And spoiler, don't recommend. I kind of had a moment with myself where I try not to be hard on myself, but I felt like I was failing. So I needed to step away because I thought I'm not being a full service to the people that I was serving on the crisis hotline. And I'm not being of service to myself. And so I actually walked away, I think maybe a semester before I was supposed to start taking clients, because I thought, I don't feel comfortable doing this right now. Like, this is not good for you. It's not good for me. So I took a break, left my overnight crisis counseling position to start doing what I do now with my teens, which I love. And I realized working for a giant mental health agency that I was doing the work without the licensure. And it just didn't make sense to me to be in a space where I would be supported in my journey to licensure and not be taking advantage of it. So hopped back on the bus, and I sort of alternate between full-time and part-time depending on my availability, but I'm way closer than I've ever been.
Because so you were in pretty much like that last, what is it, the internship portion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Natalie, amazing. Okay. And so, like you said, you're already doing the work you're going to be doing with the license. You were already doing that work, but you are continuing to gain the license. Would you say that, again, the vision from when you started has shifted, or is it really still the same vision of like why you wanted to get the licensure in the first place?
Yeah, I think the approach has shifted, but the vision remains the same. I've always been drawn to working with young people. Even when I tried not to be, I would still find myself working with young people. And I joke now because I work with teenagers and they teach me a lot. I am not a teen. I have not been a teen for quite some time, but I always joke I'm still fluent in teenage angst. I had it. I can still speak it. And in that way, I'm able to connect with teenagers in ways that, and no disrespect to parents, but like teens don't always want to connect to their parents in the ways that I'm able to connect to them. And so to be a safe adult that can hold that space has always been the goal and remains the goal.
I will say, Natalie, if I was a teen going through some shit, I would see you, meet you, and I know your energy, and I'd be like, thank God I have this person here. Cause yeah, I would be like, we need to talk. My mom, hell no.
I have that conversation a lot of with teens just being like, I just don't want to talk about this with my mom. And I'm like, come into my office, what's going on kind of thing. And I always tell them, I'm a mandated reporter. If you're not safe, if someone else isn't safe, like I'm going to take care of business, but I'm not here to judge you. I get it. Like what's going on. Teens have so much on their plate. And I think we really underestimate that era, which is so funny because we all lived through it when school dominates your life, relationships dominate your life, hormonal changes, identity. We were discussing that before we started, sort of like the identity aspect and figuring out who you are in real time. There's so much going on. And so I love working with that age group. I just think they're marvels.
Yeah. That is such a good point too, Natalie. So we've all been there. Like we know precisely through our own experience and our own lens what that was like. But yet I've nannied before. And I remember I started with one of the girls when she was 7. And as she was approaching that like 12, 13, like that ripe age of like hormone changes, all of this, even me and her mom were both like, she's like a wild animal. You know what I mean? You were trying to just like put up the bumpers to be like, you're okay. Do you need a hug? Like what's happening? But it just felt like intense. Like it is. It's such an intense time. So I love that that's been a calling that you felt and that you were able to already tap into. You are such a creative person. When I think of you, Natalie, I think of someone who is so wildly creative. You are such an amazing performer. You are funny as hell. How are you using or how are you planning to use creativity to inform the work you do in mental health? Or is that something that's important for you to kind of connect these two worlds?
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. It's essential. And just to preface that, I sort of had to break up with show business, which was really tough for me. There was that moment where, when I was 5 years old, my mom asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, I wanted to live inside the TV because I had no concept of acting. And she's like, my child is crazy. And then that moment where I thought, okay, like I'm veering away from what I've been doing for my entire life. It was a breakup and it was like a devastating one, something that I wanted to do that I knew was right for me. And I knew that I would come back in some way, but that it was going to look very different from the life that I always had expected for myself. And it was interesting because our friends are creatives. Your friends are auditioning and booking things. And I had to tell people, I love you, I support you, but I can't talk industry with you right now. You're bringing up my ex and I'm still healing from that relationship. So it was definitely a genuine, I'd say for at least a year, like a genuine grieving period. That being said, instinctually, I am creative. I'm always going to incorporate creativity into anything I do, whether it's encouraged or not. Like this will be a musical. Sorry. So yeah, as far as the work that I do with my teens, expressive arts therapy, creative arts therapy is the lane that I'm approaching. And so We do everything from, I have them speaking back to identity because it's such a huge part of teens. We do mask work where they create a mask of how they present to the world. And then on the inside, it's the things that they're hiding from the world. We put them all up in the room. No words are allowed to be spoken. I just put on some music and we walk through the museum of masks. And then afterwards, we discuss like, what did you recognize in other people's masks that you saw in yourself? What was the difference between how we want to be seen versus the things that we conceal? And just like moments like that can lead to a beautiful therapeutic conversation, but they also get that artistic expression of creating the masks.
1000%. That is such a beautiful exercise. And I think also I'm learning a little bit about group work versus individual work. And that there's something beautiful to be able to be in that space and to share, especially at a teenagers where you feel it could be so isolating and so lonely and feel like you are the only person going through it. I love what you shared about almost like the creative career being the boyfriend, so to speak, and the ex-boyfriend, because I was like getting chills as you were describing that, Natalie, because we were talking about identity before we got on. And a question that I had for you was exactly that. I have a couple friends who are creatives, like actors, producers, writers, like have been in the business of storytelling and have made the pivot into a mental health professional. I think that it makes so much sense because in storytelling, you are a lover of life and people and like exploration and curiosity. So I think it makes sense why a lot of us would be attracted to mental health and like working with people and being in space with people and giving them all of our curiosity and presence. But every single person I know who's made that jump, there has been this mourning, grieving period. And I loved the way you described it because I think the way that I've felt it and the way that it's been articulated to me is more of this like identity shift of like I've always been Maddie the actress first and foremost. And as I started getting my coaching certification, going back to school, it was like, oh, I'm Maddie the person. And that is a one slice of who I am. But there's all these other slices that I've either not realized or kind of neglected because I've always been like, nope, Maddie the actor, Maddie the voiceover actor, Maddie, like those were always the things that I led with. And all of a sudden, when you're talking to someone and they're like, so what do you do? What's going on? And you're like, oh, it's the first time I'm kind of making a choice to not lead with that. And it does feel like the right choice, but it's haunting because I always thought this love of my life would be the first choice. Always. Can you talk, Natalie, like when you made that decision and had the kind of that year period, I guess, what was it like knowing that you had to decide that? What was it like knowing that you had to decide this is going to feel like a breakup? But it's a decision I need to make.
I kept reminding myself, and to speak to what you were saying before about how creatives overlap with mental health professionals, I think it makes all the sense in the world. Storyteller was the word you used, and 100%. For me, it's human condition. I've always been in love with the human condition, and whether that's portraying it on stage or in film or through music or what have you, or sitting down with someone and holding space for their genuine human experience, like it's all interconnected. And so that was kind of how I self-soothed was you're not walking away from human condition. The way I think of it is like it's an ocean and it's a different wave. The ocean of human condition riding a different wave in the ocean. So that was my comfort. And I also knew like I just booked a stand-up gig. I'm still sprinkling sort of ways to express myself. My friends and I just started a 90s cover band for no reason whatsoever except just to do it, you know? And so like there's ways to go back to enjoying creativity for the sake of creativity and not for the business of marketing myself, of surviving off of my creativity, which is a beautiful thing. Nothing makes me happier than seeing my friends thrive through their creativity, like combining business and what you innately are as an artist. However, the transition of it sort of allowed me to create that safe space between the two, where I'm not introducing myself as, I used to always say showbiz darling because there were too many hyphens, blah, blah.
You are like the queen of hyphen.
So I would just say, I'm a showbiz darling. And I don't remember the last time I introduced myself to someone that way. Even hearing you say it now, I was like, yeah, that used to be my go-to. And now it's just like, oh, I'm Natalie. And someone asks, I say I work in mental health.
And you know what's funny, Natalie? Because I've known you, we've known each other for, I don't even know, probably it's like a decade or like almost a decade at this point, which is wild.
7 years.
Definitely. See, I'm so bad with that. People are always like, you always add years. But I'm like, it's when you go deep with people, like we used to have our accountability group, like when you are witnessing someone just like very vulnerably and raw and all of us coming together to be like, what do you want to do? How can I help you do that? What do I want to do? Like and share space like that. I feel like you go deep quick. You know what I mean? So we had our book club where we're talking about crazy things in books and all having like different perspectives. You've also, I think, even in being a showbiz darling and being so creative, you've always had a love for mental health and you've always had a love like for the human condition and you've always expressed so much interest in that area even when you were like I guess front facing like in show business. So to me knowing you like none of this is shocking.
It's so funny. When I told people, everyone was like, "Oh, of course." Like, no one has had a response of, "Really? You?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." I'm like, "Okay, cool. I guess I'm on the right path." Other people see it.
Totally. And we talked about how you're in a big transition era. And I think one of the things that you're looking towards, or you're in like the process of figuring out what it looks like in creating, is Artfelt Collective, which you've described as a creative mental health platform focused on healing through self expression. You're currently thinking about developing workshops, a podcast, which we've talked about many, many years ago, and tools that use pop culture and expressive arts to make emotional growth feel more engaging and accessible. I am obsessed with this idea. And I'm wondering when this Artfelt Collective was coming to you as an idea, what problem are you trying to solve?
So I think the biggest problem I'm trying to solve is inaccessibility and sort of the stigma around mental health. So my age group, I'm a millennial, and though we're not necessarily an anti-therapy generation, we were raised by a skeptical generation when it comes to mental health. And so some people are more open, the trickle down is also there, the skepticism is there. And so for me, it was how do I communicate not just with the young people that I work with, but also the inner children of my generation. And for me, that's pop culture and nostalgia. And I'm a big fan of, we all have these little things that we are passionate about, like lean in, put it through all the filters, figure out how to make it make sense. And for me, once upon a time, I had a podcast where I would interview stars from 80s, 90s movies, TV shows that I just loved growing up. And I always found a mental health lesson. I always found some sort of like nugget of personal development within them. And so the podcast idea is like, well, let's just be very intentional about that. Let's deep dive into all of these different films, commercials, TV shows, and actively look for those mental health lessons because some people aren't comfortable sitting in a room having talk therapy, telling someone their vulnerable truth, but they can relate to the scene in the NeverEnding Story where Atreus' horse is trapped in the nothingness and relate that to depression, relate that to grief. Like we can have a conversation through that lens. And so I think that's really powerful as a mental health tool and something that's like universally relatable. Maybe not one specific reference, but you can find different references that relate to different people.
It's so cool, Natalie, 'cause I feel like we're on this cusp of seeing mental health be talked about a lot more in the media and discussed. But like you said, 1000%, like the generation that raised us and then the generation that was above them. Oh my, that trickle down into everything. There is still themes and trends of fear within mental health. I'm always like, how can we make this fun? And what you just described, I'm like, that is such a fun way to, I think, give people a way to express themselves that doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going into my first one-on-one therapy session. Like I know how I felt. I was so excited to explore, but I was terrified because I'm like, I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea what's going to come up. I have no idea like what this excavation process will feel like. And I'm so glad I went and I've loved it. But for a lot of people, like that fear could keep them from like not even walking through those doors, even if they have the desire to express that part of themselves. So I love this.
People don't want to cry. People don't want to bring up stuff that they have convinced themselves that they've moved on from, even though it's under the surface and impacting every decision that they make. But I get it. It's scary to go into your mind when you have trained yourself to survive and cope by not going into your mind. And so that's why I think having more gentle entry points is really valuable. Back to just creative arts and expressive arts therapy as a whole, like you don't have to sit and tell the most horrible thing that happened to you, but we can make a playlist of music that either you listen to during that time or that reflects your feelings of that. And we can journal or we can color or we can create something that allows you to get in touch with those feelings without the fear that people have of like, you're going to make me discuss something traumatic and that I don't want to revisit.
I love all this, Natalie, because I think it's also showing people that you can process and you can express yourself and dig into these parts of yourself without it kind of looking as what we think of the traditional way, like the way that therapy's been portrayed in media. A professor, she said that she just had a person come in who was like 70 years old, their first time in therapy. And he walked in and he's like, "Where's the couch?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Where am I going to lay?"
That is so cute.
Yeah, she said and they were working together for 6 months and they had a great time. It was just hysterical 'cause she's like, "Oh, he's only ever seen therapy on, like, movies and TV shows," and they see, like, laying on the couch, like, "Oh, like, this is what's happening to me," and so it is funny, like, what even our idea or interpretation is, and I love that you're providing a completely unique interpretation.
Yeah. One, shout out to him for going because that is a big deal.
Allegedly, the wife threatened to divorce him. The teacher was like, "They've been together for 45 years. She would have done it already." And apparently, he said, as he sat down on the chair, not the couch, "What do you do in an hour-long session when the person is perfect?"
Well, here we go.
And then they worked together for 6 months and it was magical. And so he stayed, he showed up, and it was like a beautiful experience.
Speaking to that sort of untraditional approach, and I'm sure your program says this too, like you just sort of figure out which populations you're drawn to, and it may not make sense to you in the moment, but like you will naturally be drawn to working with different populations. And what was very surprising to me is that I kept being drawn to inmates and the prison system. And I was like, I've never had any interest in who is this kind of thing. But I just kept feeling this sort of draw because so many people have had no exposure to mental health. And there's a root to how you got into the system. Something was going on, something wasn't nourished. There's some pain here that I just kept being really drawn to. And randomly, this is how the universe works. My friend asked me to go see this play with him and his wife, and I knew nothing about it. I was just like, okay, theater. I go. The play is written and acted by 14 people who were formerly incarcerated. And it is the story of their life before, during, and after incarceration. They wrote everything, they acted everything. There was one gentleman, you could tell that he didn't really respond to the script sort of style, but he wrote poetry. So whenever it was his turn to speak, he would just come front and center and recite one of his poems. It was, to this day, and probably forever, the most beautiful, vulnerable, rawest piece of theater I've ever seen in my life. I laughed, I cried, I sobbed, I cheered. Like, I was so moved. And then they ended it, they circle up and they have a little mini group therapy session in front of the audience. They check in, they talk about where they're at. And I was just blown away. This is by the Prison Project in Los Angeles. I was so blown away. And at that point, I was still trying to figure out, like, what does my mental health journey look like, et cetera. And I was like, it looks like this. It never even occurred to me that that could be an option. I talked to them afterwards and it was life-changing for them. And having that group support, having this way to express themselves in a way they'd never done. But these people were not actors, never even thought about it. And they did it so beautifully and so earnestly. And I was just like, man, we're really underestimating the ways to use therapeutic practices because it's life-changing.
So beautiful, Natalie. And that's why I'm just so excited for you because I know we mentioned you being in this transition, but like what a cool place to be in where you're like, oh, I'm taking all of this inspiration from all of these different sources in my life as I keep moving forward and kind of seeing what will come of like all of these things threading together, which I'm just excited.
I believe it's the Laugh Factory, but the owner of the Laugh Factory was really good friends with Robin Williams, the infamous Robin Williams. And after Robin Williams passed away, he said, I can't lose any more friends. And he started hiring 2 therapists that are upstairs before every show. And he said, I can't make you talk to somebody, but they're up there. One that's beautiful, like what a loving gesture to a community that struggles. But then also I was like, man, there's so many different lanes that you don't have to be traditional. I will never be a traditional therapist. I don't think I will work with clients who want a traditional therapist. That's not my bag. But using stand-up comedy as like literal therapy, because people get on stage and say, oh, I'm a stand-up, that's my therapy. But what if it was like with the aid of a licensed professional and it could actually be your therapy? Let's play that game. Let's write a show with the help and support of a licensed therapist so that you can put your one-person show out there and heal through the creation of that show. That's the magic for me, you know?
Oh, Natalie, yeah, like you're bringing up so many things that I've never even thought of. I never knew that those therapists were there, hopefully still are there at the Laugh Factory. But yeah, it's like the ocean. It's like there's so many waves that this could look like and so many iterations of what this could even be. I'm very curious because I've been going to therapy for a long time. I got my coaching certification in 2020. Very, very different from going back to grad school. But I think a lover of mental health and mental professionals, nonetheless, like you're still obviously in like the mode of positive psychology for coaching. So definitely a little bit different. But in what ways do you help yourself when you're still struggling?
So funny you mentioned I had an emergency therapy session yesterday because I was like, she's having a meltdown. It's very real. Going to work full time plus going to school full time, especially when your work is also mental health. And then working for a crisis hotline, essentially, it's very high risk and it's very emotionally depleting on a regular basis. And I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. But there are definitely those moments where I've gotten better about sort of recognizing, like, I'm tipping, the scale is tipping. And so, yeah, I had an emergency session yesterday where I was like, stuff's coming up. I'm feeling the overwhelm. And I just want to like preemptively support myself. Like, this is a loving move for Natalie of tomorrow that Natalie of today has her in mind. I've really taken up walking.
Oh, I love walks.
It's giving emotional regulation. It's giving get out of the house, step away from a screen. I was listening to an audiobook that was based in the 60s. And there's this one little neck of the woods by my home that has that vibe. And I was like, I want to walk through this area while I listen to this book, just, you know, a little immersive experience. And then I was like, oh, maybe I just love walking because that book's been over for months now. And so, like, that's become a big thing for me. Any sort of overwhelm, I just take it to the streets, walk for like an hour, hour and a half, and just let myself move, let my body move, let my brain sort of release things, take in the birds, wink at the squirrels, you know, whatever I need to do to be out in nature and then come back and feel a bit more rejuvenated. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, same, Natalie. Like I was always a walker. And then during COVID, Jake, my husband, he never used to like to walk. And I'm like, we're going on a walk. And now that's our thing. Like that's one of my favorite parts of my day that we have together. And especially like we've talked about how much we are here on the screens, writing papers. We're so like into all of our tech and into all of our devices. We have access to everything possible on these devices. It can get so overwhelming. And that's obviously way different than even what you're describing with the load of work and of going to school full time and work full time, all in the mental health arena. So I'm a huge fan because I think to be able to have that full departure of like, no, I'm leaving everything there. And it's just like me in the streets right now, doing what we have to do to like clear it all out.
It's been such a gift. And throughout this entire conversation, you will realize for your listeners, I am very nostalgic. I love yesteryear. I love old pop culture references. So there was the era of like the 40s and 50s where they would do radio plays. We have like our podcast equivalent now, like that's kind of coming back. But I live for these old radio plays and I purposely will not listen unless I'm going for my walk. So it's a motivator and it makes it like more of a special treat. Side note, but some of the old radio plays are movies condensed and they're the same actor. So it would be like a blockbuster from the time period, and then they turned it to an hour because people weren't necessarily going to the movies. And I think we should bring that back. I would love to have some of my favorite movies, like a version I can listen to in my car, you know, for like the distance of my drive with the actors. That's just a little side plug. I'm going to figure out how to make that mental health related and make that a thing.
No, I was going to say, this is another thing to add. Again, I'm like, she's going to have this repertoire of like all this amazing mental health, like making it fun, making it different. That is such a good idea. Cause I feel like too, that's the hardest part. Like I find so much comfort. We have like our comfort shows or comfort movies where even if I've watched it 8 million times, I'm like, I need that tonight because I'm feeling in my feels and I need that comfort. And so to be able to have that where I don't have to sit down and like watch it and witness it, but to be able to like take it on my phone with me. Yes.
I'm just saying. It makes a lot of sense.
So much sense. You always have so many ideas and are so innovative. And so I was like, gosh, Natalie is just going to like provide the world with like all of these great make mental health fun gifts.
It's kind of a running gag at my job because I basically train our teens and then I do group therapy with them. So there's the most common reasons that teens are struggling or in crisis. And it's not like 3 or 4. There's many different family dynamics, school pressures, you know, and then it gets more serious and heavier subjects. And so we confront each one within ourselves within holding space for the group, and then how to support others that are struggling. And I'm always trying to figure out how to incorporate something creative, something artistic. I was like, don't freak out to my boss. I'm like, I made a Jeopardy game and everything has to be answered in the form of a question because that promotes open-ended questions to get more out of people. And she's just like, do you kangaroo? It just like lets me do it. But that feeds my creativity, which is healing for me. And it shows that there are other ways to do this. When we cover grief, I had them create grief postcards. They can send the postcard to a person, a place, a thing, whatever. I've had them send to loved ones they've lost. Someone wrote the postcard to their youth, like to their old school, and they decorate it however they want. And it's just this little thing, but taking the time to write that short message, to create what kind of postcard you would send to this person, place, or thing. It's just those little moments. It's not the focal point of learning, of psychoeducation, of holding space for yourself and others, but it's just a reminder that there are other ways to process and to have these moments where you take care of yourself creatively.
Oh, Natalie, all your ideas. I'm like, again, if I was a teenager and I had this space and someone like you, I just think about the way I would have been able to be in touch with myself at a much, much earlier age and not be 22, like, what is happening? Who am I? I need to go to therapy right now because this is a problem. That's so amazing, Natalie. I'm so curious now that you're so immersed into the world of mental health with your job and being full time in school. Is there something you wish you knew about this space before you decided to go back to grad school or before you were like, okay, I'm making this full pivot into the mental health space?
I have the same beef with, because I have a bachelor's in theater production performance and then getting my master's clinical psychology. I have the same beef with both programs where I was taught how to be an actor and how to put on a show. Like the circus is in town, like we can make that happen. However, I wasn't taught the business of acting. I wasn't taught how to be a working actor. I wasn't taught how to get an agent, what my publicist would do. That aspect was missing. And I feel the same in my experience so far in grad school for clinical psychology is I'm taught how to be a therapist. I'm taught different modalities. I'm taught the DSM, but I'm not necessarily being taught the business. You're going to need insurance to be a therapist. It hasn't been a conversation. What that looks like to create your own private practice or to be part of a group practice or, like the business of helping others. And I'm a question asker, so I will get these answers on my own accord. But it just seems like that would be so obvious that that would be part of your education. The same thing with acting. Like, why are you not teaching us how to work in the industry? Instead, we're doing Tartuffe. Cool, but it's not going to pay my bills.
What is so wild about that in both degrees that are so wildly different, that is so interesting now. Like you said, you're like, I was taught how to be a really great actor. I was taught how to be a really good therapist. But obviously, most people, especially if they're getting a degree in acting, they are hoping to use it. They are hoping that that will become their profession, like their creative career. Like, I'm all in. I'm not doing anything else.
I have a degree in song and dance. Like, I mean, business. Yeah.
Yes, like, let's go. This is to become a professional, damn it. And like, same thing with obviously grad school. It's like, okay, my goal is like use this as a professional in a career. And so it's so fascinating that there's not a whole semester dedicated to like, let's look at all the different things that this could look like. And I understand probably there's maybe a slightly more blueprint that could be handed to you for the grad school portion of like clinical mental health. But even then, like, there are many different ways. Like, it could be like, okay, here's like 18 different funnels you can go down depending on like who you want to serve and what you want that to look like. And there can be a lot of nitty gritty. And same thing for acting. Like, it might be slightly more expansive, but there are like foundational pieces and elements that have like stood the test of time that have kind of been the same over like decades. That like, why is that not discussed? Because then it's like, oh, now I know how to do this amazing skill, but I don't know like what to do with it. Where do I take this thing?
I think my frustration also is I tend to be the only person in my classes that does have a creative lens or seeing therapy through a creative lens, which is fine. The cheese stands alone. I see the value of if you want to be a jazz musician, you learn music theory so that you have the structure, but then you throw it away so you can play jazz. And so I appreciate having that traditional structure. I see the value of it, but I know that I'm not going to do that. But then where is the space for the jazz musicians? If every class is that structure, it's like, yeah, but like you're saying, we've discussed in this conversation alone, like all these different ways that you can approach this work. And I don't feel like that's necessarily nurtured or like educated, at least my experience so far. I know there's like specifically expressive arts therapy programs that I'm sure are doing that, but that should be accessible to everyone. You should be exposed to so many different ways of doing this work so that you can find yours.
The next question I was going to ask you, Natalie, it almost, I feel like kind of combines, because I was going to say before you made the pivot into mental health, what is the hardest part of being a creative that no one warns you about? But I also feel like it kind of ties into even what you're talking about is like, okay, even learning the foundation is great, but that if you are a little bit of like a line stepper, rule breaker, have like an expansive imagination beyond that, where does that get fostered? Where do you go to have that be explored?
Great. You tell me, Maddie. I'll sign up. I'll say that the continued education, and that's with acting and being a performer as well, like there's a magic to you are forever a learner. There's always something to learn and embrace and discover about yourself or your interests or how you can incorporate it into your work. So I do appreciate just sort of finding those opportunities, but I also feel like I shouldn't have to spend as much time finding them. They should be presented to me and offered as options as opposed to having to find those lanes for myself, which I've been doing. But when you're already in school and you already have a lot on your plate, it's like, how about you just make that a course that I could take as opposed to me adding to my workload?
No, 1000%. Like, can there be this course where it's like, here's all the different flavors of what this could look like? Let's discuss them. Yeah, that would be a great course. I would love to take that course too, as like a fellow creative.
And even like a course for, because so many people are transitioning into mental health, they've had a career before. Here's the course for the performers that are transitioning into mental health. Here's a course for these different walks of life that are now transitioning into mental health, just to help guide people more and to find the connection between the career path that they were on and the journey that they're taking. Like, I would take that class in a minute.
Same, not to add more to your plate of like what I think you should now design to like offer to the world.
I'm hearing myself and I'm like, oh, and I'm going to have to make this course. All right. How long is it going to be?
Already imagining.
Already in it. Already in it.
This period of transition, Natalie, I feel like periods of transition, and I would love for you to share what I believe it's your therapist shared with you as a quote. I want you to share that quote. I also want to ask you, I feel like periods of transition are so ripe because it's like we're kind of coming with all the experience we have, but we know we're going into uncharted territory. And there's opportunities to both feel confident and excited about like where it is that we're heading and what we're taking with us, that we're like bringing with us into the future. And there's opportunities for scared shitless doubt to show up of like, I don't know what to expect because this is totally new. What do you do when confidence and doubt show up at the same time?
Honestly, I kind of let them duke it out. If I'm feeling like a lack of confidence around something and feeling doubt, but also know that I do have competence, I honor the feelings and I let them sort of speak their piece, because if I don't, then it's going to be bubbling under the surface. So I'd rather just say, okay, my inner saboteur is telling me this, this, and this, and this. Got it. Heard. Thank you for sharing. Back to your lair. And then I let like the competence speak of like, well, what do we know to be true about ourselves, about the work we've done, about the preparation that we've taken? And I'm going to roll with the confidence, but I want to acknowledge these other thoughts that are coming up, because I'm so proud of people that can just like live their lives being totally delusional. Like, I'm into it. Teach me your ways. But I'm too logical and I'm too pragmatic to like ignore that completely. So I just have to like hear it out, but know that it's wrong.
What's so interesting about that too, Natalie, I was just watching reality TV and this one girl was talking about how she's like, I felt like I was so confident in my 20s. And in my 30s, she's like, in some ways I'm more confident. And in some ways I'm like questioning herself more. And I was like, oh, it's like self-awareness. What you're describing, I'm like, that's what makes me think of like, oh, I cannot turn that self-awareness off. We've reached the next level in like the game that we're playing. Like, I can't go back down a level. Like, I can't unsee what I've already seen, so to speak. I would love to be like 5% more Delulu, but it's like, nope, that little like self-awareness ping is like, put that thing over there. Like, we can't unsee it now. So that's a little bit of what it kind of reminds me of, is like, yeah, you cannot turn that self-awareness off, but you found ways to honor all of the thoughts and feelings that are coming up and like put them back in their respectful places.
Yeah, I think the sabotage kind of comes when you make it seem like those feelings aren't valid, like those concerns aren't valid. And they are. You shouldn't let them interfere with what's going on and eye on the prize. But it's a genuine concern. There's some reason that your brain is maybe it's trying to protect you. Maybe there was a past experience where it's like, oh, the last time we tried this, it was this. And I would like to think of it trying to be helpful. You know, sometimes you have those people in your life that it's like they're telling you things and they think they're being helpful. They're not, but they think they are. That's how I hear the inner saboteur voice. It's like, we're all, okay, I'm going to pop culture reference again. So I'm dating myself. There is a video from Alanis Morissette back in the day, the ironic music video, and there's 4 of her in the car. Do you remember this?
No, I don't. But I love Alanis Morissette. I know the song.
Okay, so she's in her car and there's 4 identical Alani, I don't know how you pluralize Alanis's, Alanis in the car. They all have on different outfits and they all kind of have different personalities, but they're all riding together. And I think of life that way for myself. There are multiple Natalies that had things happen at like pivotal moments in my life and we're all kind of in the car together and we alternate who's driving. Current Natalie's always in the front seat, whether I'm driving or I'm riding passenger. Who I am now is always in the front seat, but everybody's in the car. And when insecurities or fears come up, I can like visualize myself looking over and I'm like, who's driving today? Is it 6-year-old Natalie? So I lost my dad when I was 6 years old. That was one of my big, pivotal, life changing moments. And I see her as a separate entity. She's a child that I take care of. And she also can influence decisions that I make as a grown woman. She is not old enough to drive. She should never be driving the car. And yet she is insistent on many occasions when certain feelings come up and I look over and I'm like, honey, you can't drive. But I will sort of hear her out. Well, what's going on that you're upset about? Is it 17-year-old Natalie, who was like the little punk rock, little angsty girl that I'm like, okay, we seem irritated. I honor those different little Natalies. The quote that I was going to share from my therapist, which I tell as many people as I can, because it's so simple and it drives so many of my decisions, is you can't go through a life-changing event without your life changing. And I think so often we have these big life-changing moments and we try to force ourselves to be who we were the day before. And you cannot have a giant shift in your life, a transition, whatever that looks like, positive or negative, and expect to be exactly who you were before. And so sometimes I'll feel myself pushing to like, well, that's not the way I used to do that, or like, that's not how I think of myself. And it's like, well, what's changed since you last thought of yourself that way? Because that might not be you anymore. And we just have to adapt and hold space for that change. And I'm constantly reminding myself of that. I tell every teen that I work with, I'm like, you can't go through a life-changing event without your life change. You know, like I just really want to reiterate it because it's been so helpful to me.
Honestly, Natalie, the last, like, I don't even know how long you were just talking. I was enraptured. I can't wait for people to have this out into the world, to hear even just the car metaphor, and like, again, getting to hear you process like how you relate to those different parts of yourself and what the internal struggle can feel like sometimes to try to honor all these different parts. I really appreciate the way in which you just shared all of that. And that quote from your therapist is so beautiful. When you said it before we got on, I was like, oh, it hit me like a ton of bricks in such a positive way. Cause like you said, it's so simple, but so impactful. And I feel like any person of any age, whether a teen or they're like 90 years old, can hear that and be like, oh, I know intimately what that means. I'm so interested, Natalie, because I feel like we all have a really interesting relationship to fear based on like what has happened to us in our lives and where kind of, it's led us. Is there something that you feel like you're afraid to do, but you have to reach your next level of growth? And this could be like personally or professionally.
Oh, Maddie, how vulnerable do we get? To answer your question about the fear, because of my breakup with show business, like I used to film and do red carpets and do like I was so used to being in front of the camera on. And because I've taken a step away from that, approaching it again scares me a little bit. And it's so funny because I've literally been a performer since I started performing when I was 10. This is all I know, but taking that break away from it and sort of rejoining has like brought up a lot of insecurities. And I think for me, I also found out, full disclosure, I found out that I'm a little neurospicy, which doesn't surprise me at all. Like I was like, oh, honey, duh, but it's been confirmed. So learning this about myself, I've just sort of had to realize that like my brain does work differently, and I have to approach things not from what's expected or what's standard, but from a way that works for me. And I think my fear in that is that it won't be received because it is so unconventional. And then also, if I'm being fully transparent, like my consistency. I am in school. I am working. I want to create all of these different things. I have ideas for days, but can I find the balance of showing up for my ideas in the same way that I show up for my clients, in the same way that I show up for school? And that's, I think, will be, speaking of being messy, I think that's always going to be messy for me. But it's possible. Like what works for other people may or may not work for me. I shouldn't use them as a blueprint. I'm going to have to find my own lane in it.
Absolutely. Which is truly the antithesis of like what this podcast is about, right? Is that so much of, I think, what we're meant to do as creatives, as entrepreneurs is like needing to design our own blueprint. And I think that could be the scariest thing, right? Because you're like, please, dear God, someone help me take all of this and like, tell me what to do. Where should I go? Like, how should I do this thing? And then we try to follow all these other blueprints and like, that doesn't work. And we're constantly reminded the second we do try to do that doesn't work. I appreciate the vulnerability, Natalie. And I vibe with it hard because I think when I left LA in 2020, I developed this like fear of being seen and being heard. And all of a sudden, like it was through, I wanted to do this podcast for like 2 years before I started doing it. Right. And I was like, what is going on? Because I've been a performer since I was 10 years old.
It's so weird, isn't it?
It's bizarre.
You take a break and then you like get smaller somehow. Cause I guess it's like the muscles of like, here I am. You take a break from that. You have to regrow those muscles.
Yeah. And then like regrow that trust, I think, that like, oh, those muscles are there, even if they're not like as big and bulky as like they once used to be, because you were like working them out all the time. Like, oh, it's like muscle memory. But I felt a deep intimidation diving back into even like posting at first on Instagram again. I was like, why does this feel so exposing? And I was like, wait, this is wild, because think about the things that we've done with performing arts or stand up, like talk about exposing. You know what I mean? Like this is nothing. It's an Instagram post.
And then at the same time, I'll see people walking down the street, just camera in their face, just like talking about nothing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it has to be perfect and it has to be just right and ironed out, and I'm just like, and good for them and their authenticity. But I'm like, oh no, I have to write it. Or you could just get out of your own way.
Yeah. Do it messy.
Just make it messy.
Natalie, I could talk to you forever. And we're at our last couple questions, rapid fire questions. You kind of maybe just mentioned it, but like this podcast is called Get Messy. What's the messiest thing about you?
I mean, I can keep a decent home, spotless when other people come to visit. When it's just me, it can get a little questionable. I'm a clutter bug. I'll say that. I can get cluttered. I'm not like filth. It's like clutter.
Yeah. My husband's been gone this week. And I'm like, wow, it's so funny how, again, not like dirty, filthy, but I'm like, that can stay. I'll figure it out when before he gets back on Thursday. Like, I'm like, wow, who is this? Like when he's not here.
Well, there's like no one to call you out or judge,
Totally. So yeah. And I'm like, truly, like, who cares? It's me. Just like, let my freak flag fly and just like let my space be what it is for right now.
Well, you deserve rest. You're in grad school. You deserve rest.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. I do deserve rest. Trust me, the second the semester is over next week, I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself, but it's going to be nothing and it's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be nothing and it's going to be just right. Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
What are you most excited about right now, personally and professionally?
Okay, so I'm a theater kid through and through, and I just bought theater tickets to see Reefer Madness, the musical. So that's my next artist date with myself. Oh, and I'm seeing Bright Eyes and the Moldy Peaches at the Hollywood Bowl in a couple of weeks.
Couple fun things.
I've got a couple of artist dates coming up that I'm really excited about. And then as far as working in clinical psychology, I've got some fun activities planned for the young people that I work with. They're really cute because whenever we hang out, they're like, well, what are we doing next time? And so I have to kind of be solid in what we're doing next time because I know that they're going to ask. I'm looking forward to I've got some new tricks up my sleeve of little things we're going to do.
And I'm sure you keep them so just excited and engaged. Like, because can you imagine the kid going into group therapy and they're like, what are we going to do next time?
I've had a couple of them that are just like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but like, I look forward to it every time. And I'm just like, I don't take credit for that. That's the safety of the space, but it does mean something to me that like a child is looking forward to their group therapy.
Which is like, is that a sentence any child has ever said? I don't know. But
right.
That is like amazing. An honor.
I'll wear that badge.
Yeah. Absolutely. Natalie, you're so fun to hang out with. Where can people come get more of you? I'm going to put it all in the show notes, but your Instagram handle, where can they just like soak up more of you?
Yes. So my Instagram handle is Pretty Funny Nat. As we talked about Artfelt, we are in the first development stages. The podcast will be the first thing released. So I will keep people posted on Pretty Funny Nat when that is happening. Buckle up.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, it will be in your face if you want to know about it.
Natalie, I'm so excited for you. This like hour, my cheeks hurt because I feel like I've just been smiling the whole time getting to spend time with you. Thank you so much.
I have not seen your sweet little face in so long. And so thank you for having me too long. This has been an absolute pleasure, and congratulations on your podcast. Keep it up. Please keep it up.
Thanks so much, Nat. You're the best. You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.